Hello, my amigas. Today we are going to be talking about behavior that's just not acceptable, whether you have autism or not. So stay tuned and we're going to get right into it. So I talk to a lot of different parents, and a lot of times parents come to me and will just, start talking to me about some behaviors that their child does. And I've witnessed some behaviors before, and it's really hard sometimes to have to tell a parent that I think the behavior that their child is engaging in is just inappropriate, even though they have autism. For example, this was just like years ago, but a mom came to visit me at my office, and she was looking into ABA services, and she had a little guy who was about 4, and he just kept running into the wall, just boom, boom. And after the second time, I'm like, what's he doing? And mom says, well, he's regulating himself. I'm like, regulating? Like, what does that mean? She's like, well, he has autism, and it just helps him ground himself. And she just really made up a lot of nonsense stuff. Like, we have no idea what he's thinking or what he's doing. That's very mentalistic. What we could actually observe and see was he was slamming himself into the wall, and it was shaking pictures. And I felt with a couple more blows like that, one of my pictures was going to fall onto the floor. So I just said to that, mama said, but I do care about that behavior, and he can't do that. He just cannot go and fling himself against the wall, even if he's feeling sad, upset, lonely, scared. That kind of behavior is just never appropriate. And so she was a little upset with me, and I just said, he's 4 now. What's going to happen when he's 14? I said, he's going to hurt himself, he's going to damage property, people are going to be afraid of him. And so we just can't make up things or use excuses to excuse behavior like that. So that was one of the first things that we worked on with that child. He just could not fling himself against the wall. And I think the biggest reason was he could hurt himself. He's probably knocking his little brain around in there. So we really got to trying to figure out, why he was doing it. We figured, just after kind of doing a functional analysis, we figured that he was doing it for just self-stimulatory behavior, which of the 4 reasons that people engage in behaviors is really the toughest one to get rid of, because something about that immediately felt good and was reinforcing. So those are the hardest behaviors to change. So we had to substitute in another behavior that felt just as good and was just as reinforcing to him. So luckily we were able to find squeezy things, and you like to squeeze things. So we were able to get rid of that behavior and give him a much more appropriate, safe behavior like that. And then, the last time I knew, he was about 16, and he was still using his squeezy ball sometimes when he needed to. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Just, really look at your child and think about your child. And it doesn't even have to be a person with autism. There's a lot of people out there in the world that are doing behavior that is just not appropriate, and they'll say, well, it's because I'm sad, or I'm grieving, or I'm this, or I'm that. We have to really be careful. We can't use, things that are going on in our head or feelings to excuse, otherwise unacceptable behavior. Like, oh, I went to the bar and got drunk because I just broke up with my girlfriend. Like, I'm sorry you just broke up with your girlfriend. That's terrible. That is something really hard to get through. But to think that that somehow excuses the behavior of driving while intoxicated, it really doesn't. So I want to just caution parents, just when they see their child engaging in a behavior, really look at that behavior. Really look at the stories that we're spinning around it. We do not know what is happening in somebody else's head. I've got Paul sitting right there who's running the camera. He's sitting there very appropriately. I have no idea what is going on in Paul's head. He could be making a shopping list. He could just be really sad. I don't know. And so I can't just sit here and make up stories about what is going on in Paul's head to excuse, just some behavior that he might be doing. So I think that's what I'd like to ask you to do, that, as human beings, we want to make meaning and we want to make sense out of everything that goes on. Like, oh, well, this happened, and we make these elaborate stories up. But what we really should be doing, and I think that's one of the really neat things about behavior analysis, is all we really look at is the behavior. whatever's happening in the head is happening in their head. We can work on that. Those are for other professionals to work on, but we're really working on the behavior. And if there's behaviors that are inappropriate, that are standing in the way of this person's ability to get out there and make friends and interact in the world in a meaningful way and not have people be afraid of him, those are the type of things that we really need to look at. So, I know it sounds harsh when I say, I don't care how you're feeling. I just care what you're doing. Of course we care how you're feeling. We don't want anybody to be sad, upset, but those are a different set of issues that are worked on that cannot spill over and be justifiable. It's kind of like if I had a bad day and I had a headache, I couldn't just go around swatting people, well, I have a headache. People would say, oh, well, Mary, you have a headache, you can't swat people. Absolutely. It's never okay to swat people. It's never okay to pinch people. It's never okay to push people. It's never, okay to scream. Those are the things we have to look at. And again, any type of behavior that somebody is doing, they're doing it for a reason. It's serving a purpose. They are getting something out of it. Like that boy, he was getting something out of throwing himself against the wall. Comes out there was something that felt good to him. But it could also have been for maybe attention or to get away from something he didn't want. So those are the things we have to look at, and we have to figure out what more appropriate behavior or skill can we teach him to still get those needs met without engaging in this, crazy behavior. And we always have to remember that our little guys are gonna grow up and be big guys. And I know I can say that. My little guy is now 29 years old, he's 250 pounds, and he is 6'3". He can do some serious damage. He can really scare people. He could hurt people. And so I don't want him being, arrested. I don't want him being in any kind of restricted environment. I want him to go out and have the best life that he can have. And to do that, we have to really take a hard look at the behaviors that they're engaging in and figure out, is that appropriate? A lot of times, even with autism or Down syndrome or mental illness or anything, they're not. And so let's have a really open dialogue about them. Let's not be embarrassed about them. Let's talk about them. Talk with the professional staff that you're working with and saying, hey, we need to nip this behavior in the bud. What can we do? And I guarantee you there is so much that we can do to work on these behaviors and really open up your child's life and his opportunities. So I want you to think about that. And I want to hear, what do you think about this? Do you think I'm being really harsh and uncaring? If so, sound off below. I'd like to have a discussion with this. I'm not harsh. I'm not uncaring. I'm a very caring person, but I've had the opportunity to see little kids with autism grow up to big kids with autism. And I have seen some of these behaviors not get nipped in the bud quick enough where they've turned into really, really serious problems as adults. And I don't want that for anybody. I want to be able to have every child live out to be their fullest potential and get into society and have a wonderful, wonderful life. But these things can stand in the way. And then on the flip side, I've also seen children that had some extreme behaviors when they were young. And we were able to go in and work through them and get rid of those behaviors, and the child has been wildly successful and had a really great open life with so many opportunities. So, it's hard work. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard work to go in and try to, solve some of these problems and teach new behaviors. It's going to be hard, but it's worth it, because then you have the whole rest of your life to be thankful that you have that time. So, what are your thoughts? Sound off below. Let's have a conversation. I think this is something that we really need to get out in the open and talk about and not be ashamed about. It's like, yep, my kid likes to, put a bucket on his head and bang it with a spoon. It's kind of embarrassing, but he likes to do that. What can I do about it? No shame in this game. Let's talk. So hey, all my amigos, thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe, like, share, follow Life with the Sight of Autism, and I'll see you in the next video.